Financial literacy ensures that an individual is able to match his income with his expenditure. They are also meant to live within their own means and foresee going broke or bankrupt. The major challenge in financial education has been how to measure the impact of financial education on the recipient's standard of living. Financial literacy enables people to understand what is needed to achieve a decent lifestyle and work-life balance while ensuring their investments are sustainable and conducted in an ethical manner. Well, joining us to discuss this and more is Odini Oriseh. She is a relationship and business development manager in one of Nigeria's commercial banks. A very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Thank you. We were debating in the break, Shaitan and I, about the differences and the similarities between financial literacy and financial inclusion. Could we start with you explaining to us what each of these are and how they're different?
Okay, so before we even get to financial inclusion, you have to be financially literate. And like you had mentioned, financial literacy, gives you the opportunity for you to understand basic financial things like, how you save your money, debt management, investments. So before you are able to understand that, when you understand that is when you can even be included. So even if you have the banks available, if you do not understand that you need to have your money in the bank for safety and to be able to save your money, then you can't even be included. You have cases where you may have mortgage banks. If you do not understand the job or what a mortgage bank would offer to you, you wouldn't go into those banks. So basically, you have to be financially literate to be included. So the services might be available, but you don't use them because you do not understand the advantages or the benefits for those services.
Okay. Well, I think maybe we should, reel it back in a bit. So now we're talking about financial literacy. So let's talk about the benefits of financial literacy and what steps someone, an individual can take to become financially, literate. Okay.
So for starters, when you are financially literate, you are comfortable around money. When you see money, you can manage your expenses, you can make a budget. So it's not just saying, oh, I see money. When you have 100 naira, what do you do with it? Is the most important thing for you to put it in the bank? Is it important for you to service your loans? Or do I take 10 naira into investments, 90 naira into buying food stuff? You need to, so when most of the benefits, have to do, everything has to do with you. So you are managing your money, you can manage your credit, you are able to manage your loans, you can take decisions on your investments. So most things when it comes to literacy is taking actual decisions, informed decisions. So if you don't know, you can't make those decisions. And these things, you say in Nigeria, you have over 50% of financial literate people in the urban areas than you have in the rural areas, because you see a lot of us walking around, a lot of people have money, they've squandered it. Some people even have less and are able to manage it. So for literacy, it's gone beyond, I know that I put money in the bank. How much of the money in the bank is an investment? Is it just sitting there? Are you using it for your business? Are you using it are you, spending it anyhow? Those are certain things you need to understand, as the benefits.
I see. Thank you for that explanation. Thank you for that. If we were to now look at financial inclusion, it is one thing about Nigeria is that we have a lot of people. And in addition to that, our country boasts itself as having the biggest economy on this continent. However, it seems as though Nigeria does fall behind other countries and the world when it comes to leveling the playing field so that other people can access the type of financial instruments that would improve the quality of their lives. First and foremost, why do you think that is, and what needs to be done to make Nigeria more financially inclusive?
Okay, so first of all, you need to know what is available. You need to understand that the banks are available for your use. You need to understand that for you to be financially literate is actually your responsibility. Yes, when you pick up a document to read that has to do with finance, you might not understand those terms. So you go to your bank and say, okay, I have this amount or I have this problem. How do I fix this? So having those discussions will enable, you expand your horizon and give us access to what is required. So even though those banks or services are available in the rural areas, if you don't know, you can't use it. So we know that there are certain companies who have taken it upon themselves to extend services to the rural areas. But extending it is on one hand. If those in the villages do not understand why they need to do those things, it becomes a problem, which is why you have increase in fraud. There's a lot of internet fraud or financial scams. So you have a text message where somebody tells you, provide your PIN or provide your BVN or things like that. And over time, the banks have sent messages to say, we're not going to ask you for your PIN, we're not going to ask you for your BVN, and you go ahead and send it. When you are financially literate, then you understand that this is fraud and you can remove yourself from it. So being financially literate, it helps the inclusion. Because when when it comes to your area, you can even tell your mother in the village, your in-law in the village that, okay, I'm going to send you 10,000 naira at so-and-so place, even if it's an agent, I'm going to send this to you, pick it up, take 5,000 naira, pay your bills, take another 2,000 naira, use it for medical services, then the balance you can use it for upkeep. Without that knowledge, inclusion is going to be a problem for Nigerians.
Yes, I mean, I was, before we started this interview, I was asking myself that question if I was financially literate, and I, for one, know how a one-time password operates, so I think I fall in that category. Well, we have spoken about the role that financial literacy plays, but then some would say that other, major causes of a lack of, financial inclusion in Nigeria is definitely one, a lack of money, so poverty, distance from financial service providers, a lack of necessary, what would I call it now? Necessary documentation and lack of trust in financial service providers, and also the use of technology. What about all these other things? How do we tackle those factors before we even start to talk about financial literacy?
So you actually have to tackle literacy before you talk about that, because you have mentioned that there are certain things that you might not know. There are people who do not know that you can use the phone to actually do transfers. USSD is available for you to do transfers and having to walk into the bank to physically do your transfers. So some people don't trust the POS terminals. Some people believe you almost always have cash. Yes, cash is king because of our economy, but you need to understand how these things work before you can say, I want it to be in so and so location. If you tell a great-grandmother in the village that I'm putting an agent for you to come and for you to take money, she says, why? What if he steals the money? But if you explain to her that this agent has been licensed by the bank and is insured, so there is no way that I will send the money to you, even if he steals it, there's somebody that can hold or that will take responsibility for that theft. So that whoever is in wherever they are must understand how these services work for you to say they are included.
The education around finance as a whole is so valuable. And I wanted to ask you when children should start to learn it. I ask because myself as a child, growing up, at the beginning of the week, on Monday morning, you get your money for your dinner for the week. So like on the one hand, my dad would give us £10 each, and that would last us for the week, which was fantastic for me because, I'd buy wherever it was on Monday and then be out of money by Tuesday. However, my mum would give us £2.50 every morning so that we could better manage, I could better manage myself. So when it comes to children, for example, how early is too early, or rather when should children start learning about financial independence and how they can start to train themselves to be financially literate and make proper decisions? Because a child like me, it did take me a while. before I realized I had to be responsible with money?
There's no time that's too early, to be honest. And it's something that should be included in the curriculum for schools. We're talking at really very young ages. Children should be made to understand how money works. So if you want to get your kid a piggy bank or colo like this, some people call it, if you want to get them that, it is fantastic. Because they need to know how money works. They need to know they need to save. They need to know that if they invest their time in doing work, they can get paid for it, they can save for it. If they have that toy that they're looking to get, which is probably 1,000 naira, and they know that if I work this hard, they're going to be giving me 100 naira, and I have that for 10 days, I have 1,000 naira, which I can save for the toy. So they have something. So they're already, putting some steps into making that happen. I'll tell you, weirdly enough, when I was in secondary school, for some weird reason, my parents were not visiting me, But I knew that they would send me to school at the beginning of the term and say, bye, and I'm there with all I have, all my provisions and all the money I have. And I had to understand at that point that I needed to have something at the end of the term. Because if I run out of money at the beginning of the term or the middle of the term, I'm not getting anything. So I needed to start saving. And maybe it was the grace of God. I really cannot put anything on it, but I was able to learn how to save. And this is something that has taken me up till today. As at university, when I used to have to go somewhere, if I had to go by public transport, it was 1,000 naira I was given, and maybe 500, maybe I was able to save 200. So 200 for that day is saved. The next day, if it's 100 naira, so I have 300. So I kept saving, and that culture has followed me till today. So there's no age to which you say, we're going to start, this is the time. If we can start at 3 to get a little piggy bank. Kids love to save. And please, mothers, don't hold the money for the kids. Put it in the piggy bank so that when they open it and see how much they save, they want to do more.
Now, I wish I kept my piggy bank. I would always open it up every morning to take the money I put in the night before. But we're going to go on a quick break now. And when we come back, I would like to talk about the financial literacy gap in Nigeria as it stands right now. You're still watching The Morning Show? Join us again. Welcome back to The Morning Show here on Arise News. Now, before the break, we were talking about financial literacy, and Femi did tell us that it was a struggle. It was a struggle to work with that £10, for the entire week. You don't spend everything in one day. But you know what? And we've spoken about children. But I want us to talk about certain political regions ethnic regions that have been ignored. A closer look at the financial literacy gap in Nigeria suggests a higher concentration of financially excluded persons in the north relative to the south. We're looking at the northwest, 73%, the northeast, 66%, compared to 36% in the southwest. Now, is there a focus in that area to help bridge this financial literacy gap?
Well, like most statistics we have in the country, when it comes to even education, you would find that it's about the same thing. So if those that live in those locations are not properly educated, it's going to be difficult for them to understand why they should do certain things. It's for people in the southern parts of the country where, they understand how money works. We have certain ethnic groups that are very good when it comes to investments. They put their teeth in it, and they are willing to go the whole 9 yards. So it's the same thing, when it comes to the different regions, or like say ethnic groups where you have that gap. So those areas, what should be done is complete education. So apart from regular going to school, is to understand that money is actually a good thing. It just needs to be understood. You need to have principle around it as to what to do with it, where to place it. And by placing, I mean, am I going for debt or am I going for equity? What kind of business do I need to do? Do I save this money for the future? Do I use it now? that kind of education, along with regular education that is required for every child, that is what should go to those ethnic groups. I believe that if there's a increased level of education in those areas, they would actually improve the literacy in the northern part of the country.
Very, very good. If we were to look at the pace in terms of us reaching our financial inclusion targets, I wonder what needs to be done to reach that. I'm asking because the Central Bank of Nigeria came up with a plan. They refer to it as the National Financial Inclusion Strategy back in 2012. And they said that they wanted to reduce the level of financial exclusion from around 46% in 2010 to 20% this year being 2020. It doesn't look as though they are going to reach that target. It doesn't look as though they are on track for that target. So what do you think needs to be done to ramp up our speed?
Okay, so there are a couple of things I know I had mentioned earlier, and I think you also mentioned. The fintechs are actually trying to work at having to put the facility or the infrastructure in places where that can happen. Thanks to the pandemic, there's a need to change the way things are being done. The brick and mortar buildings are no longer as necessary as they used to be. So there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done, especially in the IT space, where you need to probably make phones that would be at low-cost type cell phones that can be used in areas that don't have this financial inclusion. So if they have that, it's easy to disseminate information and tell them, look, for your BVN, you don't need to go walk miles. It's available in your hand. If we push investments to those areas where we can make those phones available, especially in the rural areas, I think that would actually have great effect on reducing the gap.
Okay, so let's talk about how, financial institution stakeholders should be, or, leveraging the media in addressing some of the misgivings of individuals who are financially excluded, by driving increased awareness and the benefits of participating in an organized financial system. You are on here this morning, obviously having that conversation, but it feels as if we're not having that enough. How can we leverage the media in spreading the word?
So we know that a lot of us on this side of the divide, we do a lot of watching. There's a lot of social media, but it seems that it's not getting to the grassroots. There are certain locations where the best way to reach them is over the phone. Oops, I'm sorry about that, over radio. Mm-hmm. So if you need to send messages over and over again over radio. I remember years ago where you would have those jingles. Till now, those jingles are in your head. So if you say it so many times in different languages, then it has to stick. So we need to ensure that the message is sent through those various media to reach the people in the grassroots. That is the only way. So having, even if you're having plans where you're talking on TV and doing ads, you need to realize that some areas, some locations do not have power. Some areas don't have the network that they have from the telcos is not strong enough. So use every media possible. Twice a day, 3 times a day, keep saying it, keep singing it until people hear. Goes back to where the children are. So if you start these things early, it helps to drive that information. So it's not just sitting back in our houses and telling the older people. Start teaching the younger people how these things are done and how it benefits them so that they can spread the word. If the adults don't know, then the children cannot know. So let's even say we've lost it with the adults. If we start with the children, it reduces how much we need to do as we go further.
Absolutely. out of fear of us not going too far backwards, because I feel like our conversations have made so much progress where we've understood that it's never too early for anybody to learn about being financially literate, and even it's also not too late for anyone. Because, and I'm happy you mentioned the radio, because my grandmother, for example, who doesn't live in Lagos State, listens to the radio religiously. So I do see how that is a very valuable way that we can continue to put messages out there. If we were to talk about your ideal when it comes to looking at Nigeria and our level of financial literacy as it stands, how comfortable are you with our current rate? And what do you think needs to be done to improve that, if that's how you feel? And even so, if you were to look ahead, how long do you think it will take us as a country to get to your perceived level of what a good amount of financial literacy would mean or would be in this country?
Okay, so if it was up to me, financial literacy would have been, we would say, you know what, let's all take it back. Like, we all need it. We all need to get to that point where we sit down and we know, how many accounts do I have? What money is there? What's it doing there? You know, do I need to take a loan? If each person is at that point where you can decide that I'm not going to be a consumer, this is a perfect time. The pandemic is such a time where a lot of learning, especially when it has to do with finance, has come to the fore. If you can use this time to, you know, reflect and ask yourself how much you really know about your finances. Are you at a comfortable place? Do you know where all your savings are? Do you know if your savings are actually doing anything for you? Are you way in over your head? Do you need to, you know, take a step back? If we move at the pace we are going, we will not get there in the next 20 years. If we move at that pace. So we need to make it faster, and we need to be more deliberate. We need to be intentional about what we are trying to do.
I mean, those are some very scary facts that you stated. If we don't start now, we do have a very long way to go. I mean, you said something that, you know, piqued my interest. And as a business owner myself, let's talk about SMEs. You know, okay, so sorry, we have come to the end of this segment. However, I'm definitely going to be hitting you up to find out more about how I can get myself financially literate. Thank you so much for being on the morning show this morning.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Have a good day.